don't know how to work these things anyway. But yeah, no, what interests me, because I'm a football fan, and the I don't know, some of my friends, if I ever watch rugby, Six Nations or whatever, yeah, they just like, oh, what are you watching that egg chucking crap for, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Sport to me is sport. If it's a drug, I'll just watch it. If it's on, I'll just watch it. But in terms of football and rugby and the seemingly progressive nature, socially progressive nature of rugby versus the kind of, I don't know what you call it, static acceptance of difference within like social structures, so like, you know, the homophobia in football and the lack of it in rugby. Do you, like, when you hear about another rugby player that's come out and no one gives a crap because it's perfectly normal and natural and lovely and wonderful, but then you hear about it in football, like, as in no one's come out in football for many reasons, do you ever just like celebrate the fact that how open-minded and how progressive your sport is?
I do. Maybe I take it a bit for granted because I've always been raised that way. So it's sort of, I never came from like a family that was divisive in that way. Like my mum and dad are like very, very progressive parents. But yeah, when I see it, especially with guys like Levi, I think you're referring to. I used to play with him. Yeah, no, like it's awesome. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm not sure where why there is this kind of resistance in football. But it's like, yeah, to answer your question though, perhaps I take it a little bit for granted. I mean, yeah. there is some things that irks me a bit with rugby. Like it could be more. The product itself is like amazing. Like I think it is, but I would say that. But I feel like it's not marketed amazing because it's like it's still not that. I don't know. Inclusive is not the word. Accessible, maybe.
Yeah, it's a tricky sport to understand as well, right? It's there are certain phases and the offside and all this kind of stuff. 15 players on the pitch is pretty difficult, you know, and yeah, I get that, but it's still, I mean, essentially it's just a hard-hitting, enjoyable sport.
Yeah, all you're doing is trying to win territory. I think if you can tell people that, I know that the rules are a bit nuanced, but the idea of the goal of the game is pretty basic. Yeah. Move the ball to space, get up the field, dart it down. But there's still a little bit of snootiness about it, which is disappointing. But it'll get there. I think it'll get there.
I mean, you're the first rugby player I've ever spoken to, a professional rugby player. Spoken to, like, you know, friends that play or what have you, but it just strikes me as a very refreshing mindset. And I don't know if I want to draw the point out too much, but it just does seem to me just like a natural family-orientated sport. Obviously, most sports are, but in terms of like family in, I don't know, social progressiveness, you know, without even, like you said, you don't even think about it, you take it for granted. But what a thing to celebrate. You know, I drive past your old rugby ground on the A205, and there's a massive advertising thing like on that electric board up there now. And I think it was around the World Cup, I can't remember now. But it was like basically celebrating like gay men in rugby. I mean, and then I'm thinking about my sport, football, and I'm ashamed, like really, genuinely, kind of ashamed. Can rugby teach football anything? How they can go about like including people that might be like struggling with like having to suppress their real selves?
That's so tough, isn't it? I think the thing is, I don't have great insight into football. It's not something I follow, so I don't know the culture that well. But what I do there's something about football that I do admire, which is it's this sort of weird fanaticism. It's so intense. It's sort of like what I was talking about with school, like how I was so galvanized by the first 15. But this is like whole cities and whole groups of people who just completely define their existence almost by like supporting their team on the weekend. And then that's different level. That's different gravy. And I find it almost nuts, but it's also like amazing.
So do I, man. So do I.
Yeah. Which I think there's an element of that in rugby, but it's nowhere near as widespread as football. Like, it's mad. So I think I don't know, I just don't have enough insight into what it is. But I think with anything like that, I don't know if it's synonymous with being able to embrace any real individuality. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
I think like the fanaticism tends to cloud like the possibility of, I don't know. I think that's, for me, it's like I've spoken about this with other people, either, you know, sports commentators, presenters, or ex-players, and they've got way more like insight, and it's hard to. You're trying to. I'm putting a question to you about another sport that you have absolutely really no connection with or no love affair for. But what I'm trying to do is just trying to pat rugby on the back and just go, why, why is this such a? Do you know what I mean? And but
if you ask different rugby players though. They'd have different opinions about it. Yeah.
I mean,
like they'd say there isn't enough.
Yeah.
In terms of like being yourself, being able to be yourself. But as you say, it's a lot better than where it could be. I completely agree with you. I think in lots of ways it is very inclusive.
I'd love to just like pivot slightly onto like I once heard Brian Moore speaking about, I think it was Brian Moore speaking about his depression and his, I don't know, like OCD, like intrusive thought patterns before, during, and after kickoff, playing for England, what have you. And you know, he'd win the Six Nations or something with England, and then 3 minutes into the changing rooms, he's in a corner, you know, berating himself. Mental health is a huge part of everyone's life, obviously, but I mean, in terms of like accepting it and talking about it now, what's it like now within your team, within your structure, your coaching structure, your own life, maybe, in terms of mental health and prepping yourself either for a game or just getting through a day in COVID times?
Oh gosh, it's a big question.
It's a big one, man. It's a big one.
It is a big one. I think with rugby, what I've realised is my first 2 years, three years, I got by on just like, it's pro rugby. I got by on just like full on zeal and zest for the game. Like I was so like motivated because it was all so novel. I was trying to make a name for myself, and but that sort of juice, if you play on it, just that alone, it's quite difficult to like replicate that for a long career. So like I was trying to always emotionally invest myself in each game, to put myself in a place where I can like run at kind of forests of well-nourished shoulders, and I was just like, what am I doing? And there was this point where I was like, what am I doing? This is going to be, it was a weird thought. Like I must have been 23 at the time, 23. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I've got potentially another 10 years of this. Is this right? Like this grind? Because it almost desensitized me to what I loved about the game. So it was just an everyday thing. And then you've also got the scrutiny of coaches, the scrutiny of fans, and like it's just completely different. Almost like pro rugby is so obvious, with anything professional, it just changes the nature of it. And that was my first time where I had to like really sort of encounter my like some changed feelings on the sport. So then I sort of tried to change it up, and I traveled abroad to play over there. Because that was sort of my goal, was to play international rugby at the time. I was Aussie qualified, and I went for it. But that wasn't the issue either. And that sort of, I was a bit too young for such a big move so far from home. And my old coaches at London Irish, it was like a big, as you said, it was like a big family. Like, it was an amazing environment. I was very blessed with that culture. I loved it. And but then I went to the Rebels, and I really enjoyed it. But it was,
where are they based, sorry?
In Melbourne.
Oh Christ, man! Okay, that's a huge step.
Great city. Loved it. Loved the city. Had some family there. Great times. Bit seedy, bit naughty. Very good. The Aussies have a good time. Very good time.
AC/DC Lane in Melbourne. Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, what a glorious city. Great times. Good food. Great food. Bit smug about their coffee, but I'll give it to them. King of breakfast.
Yeah.
And then I met this coach. What?
So go on, carry on, Max. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so the head coach was a guy called Tony McGann. Absolute warlord, like old school. The headmaster of the old school. Like, it was all carrot. It was all stick, no carrot. Like, he welded it. Tough Queenslander, like, oh, Cat, you're right, man. You useless. Useless. All the time, just red in the face. Little man, but like, filled a room. And I didn't know what to do with this. Yeah. And like, guys were telling me not to take it personally and all this. And it was like compounding on top of me. I just wasn't used to it. I was just a little snowflake. And
it's too much. It's too much, man. You're on the other side of the world, for God's sake.
So yeah. So so I struggled with that. And I developed I got like some severe anxiety. It was the first time I ever like really encountered mental health, like bad mental health. And it was like just racing thoughts, just like you were just exhausted the whole time. You had no control of your attention. It was just it was like a miasma of just madness. Like it was just like I couldn't. It was amazing. It was fascinating.
That was due to what, the pressure of being in a new city and having
I saw it was also like I saw myself failing. I think it was like the first time in my career where it just wasn't going as the prophecy, it wasn't fulfilling itself. Everything up to this point I was knocking off. I had played well in the Premiership. I was starting for London Irish at like 22, doing really well. Then I went to, and it just started like derailing, and I felt this pressure on myself that my ego put on myself, and I felt from people I knew as well, and it was just all, it was all pretty overwhelming. And
how did you cope? I mean, who's there helping you? Did you just are you sitting in a hotel room on your own, or?
So I had to go. I sort of ventured out and found a sports psychology, a sports psychologist, sorry, and he was a good man, and he helped me out a lot. But by then, the sort of damage had been done to my stock, and when they sort of got an excuse to get rid of me, they did, and so I ended up back in the UK with Bath, and and then I really enjoyed my time at Bath. I had a very good career there. Well, I like to think so, and I had a good time. And I managed to sort of rebuild myself. Meant to an extent. There was also sort of some other things that I needed to sort out to like truly individual, like to truly like accept myself. And
was that based in was that like based in the I don't know what we call it, like the destiny vibe that we were talking about earlier, the celebrating, the call from the guy, London Irish, saying, this is going to happen for you. Is it about coming to terms with, I don't know, like leveling out, being like I don't know, like, is there a glass ceiling? Was there an element of that to it? I don't know. Like struggling with
I think there was a big part of that. Like, I think I completely defined myself at that point by being a rugby player. And what I realized is there was a lot more to myself than that, especially now. But I only sort of realized that in my late 20s properly. So there was always this turmoil, like there was a resistance to just identify myself as a rugby player. And it manifested itself in like the way I behaved as an adult as well. Like I wasn't the best I could be. I was generally quite anxious. I mean, rugby is sort of like a tough environment socially. It's not tough. It's just like, if you're not sure of yourself, it can be difficult to like be yourself, if that makes sense.
Mate, competitive sport, there's nothing quite like it. And like Adam Gilchrist or Ricky Ponting talk about that. They talk about how if there's anything on the pitch, the opposition, whoever it is, they are going to find it. They're going to find your weakness, right? And that goes with any sport. And it's tough, right?
It's the same with just like the players you're with as well. Like, there's like, obviously you want that professional respect as a teammate and as an athlete and as a performer. Like, you need that sort of credit. And I suppose it's easier to, like, in team sports, quite easy to find yourself conforming to the status quo, like especially in really strong team cultures, I find. And I think that builds. I think you can find yourself alienating yourself from yourself, if that makes any sense. You sort of devalue who you are because you want to be liked or you want to conform. So then what happens is you get into very unhealthy patterns. And that's what was happening throughout my career until about 28, because I just kept trying to be this rugby player, I suppose. I don't know. I was slowly getting out of it, but it took. I don't know. It was just because that was my whole social life, really.
Yeah. Like,
it's such an intoxicating environment. Like, the whole thing is like the locker rooms. It's an intimate place. The whole place, like you're witnessing everything that motivates other guys or what demotivates them. Like, you're witnessing quite private moments. It's a weird thing to say, but that's how I see it anyway. When I'm playing rugby, when I'm in the coaching environment, like, you see people sort of in vulnerable states a lot. So like, some people might say you're only there from, I don't know, whatever it is, 9 to 5, but it's not like a job where you punch in and punch out. It's a lifestyle, because so much of your fabric of your actual self is invested in being a rugby player, because it's hard to just treat it as a job. It's very much a lifestyle that you embrace.
Yeah.
So when I say rugby player, I mean, because I spent so much time in it, even like all my social life, like when you're a young 20 something, and you're just with the boys on a night out after a game, and then it's back to the grind, do it again. And it's just like, you slowly sort of transform into something. If you're not, I don't know, like anything, you're sort of you're an accumulation of your experiences, aren't you, in life?
Yeah.
But if you're not aware about, like, if you're not aware about lying to yourself, I don't know if it's lying, being dishonest with yourself.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, being authentically you.
A form of deception, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of dishonesty there, and then because everyone else is doing it, because it's cool. The peer pressure, even if
But
it
you-
isn't peer
It
pressure.
just, but what it, I mean, it just kind of, it seems to me like there's a struggle there, like, or was a struggle there rather, like, maybe there is still to a degree, I don't know. But it seems bigger than rugby. I don't know when you said you were trying to be some, more than just a rugby player. What other things were you trying to attain? Like what things were there going on there?
I don't know if it's like being